Why Frogman? Because Bigfoot's had his time, and Mothman's had his time, and Frogman hasn't had his time yet.
People keep saying that my Frogman footage is fake, and I'm gonna get proof that the Frogman exists.
Dread Divers sat down with writer-director Anthony Cousins to discuss his 2023 film Frogman, his influences, working on the Scare Package films, and some of his earlier shorts with impossibly long titles like
Every Time We Meet for Ice Cream, Your Whole Fucking Face Explodes. It's based on a novella by Carlton Mellick called Every Time We Meet at the Dairy Queen, Your Whole Fucking Face Explodes, which, for obvious reasons, we didn't want to use Dairy Queen.
I'm the Dairy Queen, won't you come with me along the milkshake way?
And there also is this existing ice cream shop in Minneapolis called the Galaxy Drive-In, which at the time hadn't been operational for years, but somehow my producer on that knew who owned it and got a hold of them and got us permission to shoot there, even though it was shut down. And it looks exactly like it does in the movie. It's just got these crazy vibrant colors, and we brought in all those old-time cars to just give it this like out-of-era feel. That was my first project that I actually didn't shoot myself as DP and director, because I wanted it to be so strong visually. I knew like I had to give that up, and like that would have just been spreading myself too thin. So I came up with that color palette, and I showed it to the DP, the production designer, and the head of wardrobe. And I said, this is our color palette, and we don't break out of this to like give this like weird otherworldly feel. And they all just killed it. They absolutely killed it. I really love movies that feel like they're not in a specific era. They're almost like a mashup of time. Like Streets of Fire is one I always think of, where it's like 80s like ballad metal, but it has a lot of like 50s elements to it. It's got like this greaser aesthetic, and the cars feel more 50s. I just love that stuff.
The year was 1980.
I made a short film called The Bloody Ballad of Squirt Reynolds, which I also co-wrote with John from Frogman and stars Nate from Frogman.
But one night, while he slumbered in his bunk, a bunch of kids filled the mask with steaming hot honey glue. They woke Squirt up.
And I went to Texas Frightmare with that. And the Paper Street guys were there. And they really liked Squirt. We met up, hung out. So that's how I got linked up with them. And it wasn't until maybe a couple months after Texas Frightmare they hit me up and said, you know, we're doing this horror comedy anthology. You know, what you did with Squirt was kind of perfect. Like, would you want to do something for this?
Oh, got a boop.
That's how it all began. And we decided to do a part 4 of a series that doesn't exist, because that just seemed, you know, when dealing with horror tropes, that seemed like a fun one to deal with. And they just, you know, gave us our budget, and we made it on our own in Minnesota. That was a rare opportunity to really get meta, which is something I shy away from. Like, I try to make stuff, like even when we're dealing with humor, like make it feel like everyone in the thing doesn't know they're part of a horror movie, you know? But that was the whole point of Scare Package. So we really leaned into like making our own Loomis character.
No, it's not over. He could still come back.
Babe, he's dead.
And playing with the fact that the killer just keeps coming back over and over and over, even when you kill him.
What should we do with these? Chloe!
So obviously Halloween was the big reference there. Michael Myers is like the king of just resurrection. The second one, I did have a rough understanding of what the other segments were gonna be. I didn't talk to any directors directly, but I did know what the other segments were gonna be. So it was a very isolated situation. We made the second one in Minnesota too, which I'll say When it comes to anthologies, it doesn't usually work for me when it just like, when the segments feel very isolated and there's not a whole lot of cohesion. I don't usually love that, but I think they created a clever framework with Scare Package where that actually does work, because you are watching movies within the movie. So it gives you kind of total freedom to feel completely different than any other segment. And actually it's like probably better if each segment feels completely different than the others and there's not that cohesion.
The found footage genre is sometimes fraught with detractors. So I asked Anthony if he considered Frogman to be a found footage film.
Call it a found footage movie, yeah. I'm not afraid of that. I love found footage movies. You know, that was a bit of a stigma for a while, but they're kind of having a moment again. You've got the Outwaters, Horror in the High Desert. Yeah, there's really a lot of love coming back for found footage, and especially indie, you know, like grassroots found footage, like where it started, because it kind of, Hollywood got a hold of it for a bit. And it kind of comes in waves, like Blair Witch comes, and then there's a ton of Hollywood copycats of Blair Witch. Some of them good, some not so much. Then it dies down, then you get Paranormal Activity, and then you get a bunch of Hollywood copycats of that. That was made for like 10 grand or something, and it, you know, did millions. It was great. And then you get a whole slew of copycats of that. It kind of kills itself, you know, shoots itself in the foot, dies down again. And I think we're in the upswing right now of found footage, where there's a lot of just indie, low budget stuff getting made and like a lot of innovation.
The Frogman legend is based in Ohio, but did they shoot the movie in
Frogman country? No, we didn't shoot in Frogman country. We shot in Minnesota because we made this for very little with what we had, and we all live in Minnesota, so we couldn't afford to fly everyone out to Ohio this time around. I hadn't even visited Loveland yet when we shot this movie. So we shot in and around Minneapolis, but I have visited Loveland now, and it's a really cool little town. I think we did it justice. We captured the essence of Loveland in Minnesota, thankfully, but it would be really cool to get out there to at least shoot a little bit, because it is a really unique small town. There's a wave happening right now, because when we made this movie, there wasn't a whole lot of Frogman fandom that you could find to be a part of. It was kind of scattered. And I think this movie is helping unite the clans a little bit. This guy, Jeff, in Ohio, started a Frogman festival in the last couple of years.
Whether it's Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, cryptid creatures have captured our imaginations for centuries.
Oh, yes. And this weekend, there is a celebration being hosted in honor of the Tri-State's own cryptic creature, the Loveland Frogman.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like thousands of people coming together to celebrate Frogman. So he's having a moment right now.
I want the world to know the truth.
Okay.
About Frogman.
The camera that we shot Frogman on, the Hi8 camera, was the camera that my dad would take on family vacations. So that's the camera that I kind of got my start on. You know, when he wasn't filming, one of us kids would pick it up and mess around with it. But I didn't get serious into filmmaking until college. But my co-writer of Frogman, I met him in college. Our lead, Nathan Timoshuk, Ryan Shadley, that did the effects. Lots of people that I've been working with for over 10 years since the beginning.
So what's next?
Yeah, there will be a Frogman 2. We're writing it right now. It's really fun because, you know, something we wanted to do with Frogman is give you characters to really care about, which is something that is kind of rare in found footage movies. And obviously the whole, it's in the title of found footage. It's footage that's found 99% of the time. And there's kind of like subgenres within there. There's like kind of like faux docs and stuff like that. But 9 times out of 10, the characters in a found footage movie, you can't bring back. They usually all end up dead or missing, right? So that's something we really wanted to play with, is like leaving some of our characters alive so that we could bring them back and evolve them. Like, how did the events of the first movie affect them? If we're gonna stay in the found footage element after going through this traumatizing experience, why would they ever pick up a camera again? Because that's the other really fun problem to solve when it comes to found footage, is why is a camera rolling at all? So I think we've found a really fun direction to go with how we bring Dallas back, where he's at after the events of Frogman, and why he would possibly be like returning to Loveland, or why he would have a camera rolling again.